Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Media Education Labs meeting for September 2025. Today is September the 8th. My name is Wes Fryer. I am a middle school teacher here in Charlotte, North Carolina, teaching middle school STEM and media literacy. And today our topic is a favorite podcast share out. So we are a small group online. We'll see, who ends up joining, but the the thinking for this meeting was that being able to get recommendations from others, being the filter for others when it comes to all the different podcast content that we have, can be very valuable. And so hopefully we'll learn about some new podcasts today. To give you a little outline of what we're going to do for those of you that are joining us live, if you want to open up a chat window and share where you are coming from. And then if you want to put in something about a podcast listening app that you like to use, there are a lot of different apps. And in the last year, I was very interested to see that YouTube has now become the #1 platform for podcasting. And I guess I kind of have mixed feelings about that. I mean, YouTube obviously is a video platform, but I have been, listening to podcasts and creating them since the mid 2000s for about 20 years now. And so I've thought from the beginning that podcasting is just a fantastic medium, and it has so much great potential in so many different ways. Um, and obviously things have continued to morph and change. So Petra is a Spotify user. Looks like Lauren is an Apple Podcast user. I am a Pocket Casts user. Pocket Casts is a app that runs on both the iPhone platform and Android as well. So we've got folks from Slovenia, from Chicago, USA, Chicagoland, and from North Carolina today. I'll share a few announcements about some upcoming events that are happening. And then what I think I will invite us to do is go ahead and put some information on one or more slides of our slideshow. So I have a link here to this collaborative slideshow, and for the time that we're here in the session, I will change this once we end our session, but I've got it set so that anyone with the link can actually view or not just view, can edit the slideshow. And I think that I will probably pause the recording. Usually when we do these, we will have kind of a presentation, then we'll go to a breakout room and we come back to talk and share. I think I will change that up a little bit, pause the recording while we kind of work on building a couple of slides with some podcasts that we like, and then we can come back and share and talk about those. If you're willing to talk about yours, you can. If you want me to give voice to that, I'm certainly happy to do that as well. We do keep some collaborative notes that have links to all of our past shows from a little bit more than the past year, and that is available. I have a shortened link of wfryer.me/media club, but it's a Google Doc that you can go to. I also encourage everyone to be using platforms like Blue Sky, Mastodon, and Threads. I'm not a big Twitter user anymore, although I know there's a bunch of folks still using it. But we can use the hashtag Media Ed Club in order to connect with each other, or Media Ed Lab, or both. We do have a number of events coming up in the month of September besides this one. Normally, our Media Ed Club, and that also may be, and that's fine, Petra. Yep, if no worries, just join us for what you can, and we'll have the recording for this posted later today. Totally fine. Normally, we are meeting the first Monday of the month, and because this was the Labor Day holiday, we went ahead and switched that for this month, though that may have also impacted the number of folks if they had set their calendars to the first Monday. Unfortunately, we made a change, and that was everybody may not have gotten that word. But usually we're here on the first Monday at noon Eastern time, whatever time that is in your time zone. But coming up on September 17th, we have a session that is being presented by Professor Ergens, who is at Vanderbilt University, on AI literacy for young learners, supporting children developing their socio-critical AI literacies. And so that's going to be one of the next big events coming up in September. On September 22nd, we're going to have someone presenting about a topic that relates to what we're talking about, podcasting, Deborah Pardes, and she is the Vice President of Stories and Voices at Swell. And so I am not familiar with Swell. Swell is an app that allows for folks to create podcasts, but also I think create interactive conversations around those podcasts, which is pretty awesome. And so I'm actually really looking forward to that. That will be same time, a 12 p.m. Eastern time presentation. And then on September 25th, we're going to have a presentation by Dan Lohman, and he is currently in the Netherlands. He is a Kiwi from New Zealand. He's going to be presenting about assessing the evidence for digital interventions to inoculate against misinformation. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. The final one, this is a lot for September, is a presentation by several of our colleagues from Brazil. Daniela and Moises are going to be presenting on media literacy and education, an overview of the Brazilian scenario. And I would share that in 2019, when I had an opportunity to attend that particular summer's iteration of the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy, which has evolved since then and since COVID. But at that time, I attended in person on the campus of the in Providence, Rhode Island, and the University of Rhode Island at URI. And so I was very, very thankful and fortunate. I should have put a picture in here because I have a fun picture with a lot of the Brazilians to work with a number of educators from Brazil. They have been operating under some government mandates for media literacy education. They have created and shared a wealth of excellent and fantastic resources relating to media literacy. And so that was a great opportunity to learn, and I look forward to seeing and hearing what Daniela and Moises are going to share as well. And so all of these events that I've just given you a quick little preview for, a recap of, are available on the Media Education Labs events page that you can find on mediaeducationlab.com/events. And these are all part of the free events series. And really looking forward to that. I will share one other comment that I guess it was 2 summers ago, I had an opportunity to be to travel to the University of Washington in Seattle and participate in a wonderful multi-day workshop on media literacy lessons from Finland. And Finland also is a country that has requirements for media literacy education, and those are across the curriculum. And there's just so much that we can learn together internationally. There's so many ways that other people and other educators in other places are doing innovative things, and so much that we can benefit from. So I'm very thankful to the Media Education Lab for the ongoing series of events that are available. Want to encourage anyone who is listening to check out the website, register for those events. And if you've got other links to share related to those topics or anything else in the webinar, I invite you to go ahead and post those into our collaborative chat for the Zoom. I will be taking that chat and taking any show notes that are shared there. And if they don't make it into our slideshow, I will try and share those as well in the archive. So that is a link. We've had Amy join us. Welcome, Amy. If you want to tell us in the chat where you're joining from, and if you have a favorite platform for listening to podcasts, please feel free to do that. So what I'd like to do is basically I'm going to pause the recording here a minute. I'm going to invite us And because we're such a small group, we won't go into breakout rooms. We'll just stay here. But if you're able to, and not everybody's able to, some of you may be on a phone or some other device that's not going to allow you to do that. I'm going to invite you to edit one of the blank slides in our slideshow here, and then just try and customize it a little bit to share a favorite podcast. This can be related to media literacy or to something else, another topic. Of course, we are gathered here for the Media Education Lab, so sharing some podcasts related to media literacy will be great. But I also really love finding out the other kinds of things that people are into. Creativity oftentimes thrives with connections and intersectionality. And so that's why it's cool to meet with people who are in different places doing different things. And, so in fact, yeah, Amy just said she uses Pivot and Jules Terapak. I don't know what that is. So great. We'll get some links to check those things out. So let me show you an example. One of my favorite podcasts that I listen to almost every week. I'm not being as sort of dedicated as I was at one time. This always varies with time. But I really like listening to the Hard Fork podcast, and that's a New York Times podcast, but it has not only the journalist Kevin Roose, but it also has Casey Newton, who's an independent journalist, and he has the Platformer newsletter and website that runs on Ghost, actually. He migrated from Substack. And so they talk a lot about AI, but have all kinds of interviews. I would definitely say that they are, for the most part, AI evangelists, and we definitely have this huge hype cycle of um, conversation and investment and everything about artificial intelligence. But anyway, that has been for me a really good way to stay up on a lot of what's happening in the world of artificial intelligence. I learned about vibe coding, VIBE coding, which is coding with AI. In fact, this last week I was working on a project that I'm so excited to have done and been able to make. No way, no way that I would be able to code this. It was a Google, it's JavaScript, but it's in Google script. No way I could have done that without AI. So anyway, that's just one example of something that I have learned. But you don't have to make your slide as fancy. I have put the little show art for the podcast on there, but I do have a link to it. And then if you are willing to share your name and you want to share any kind of connections, places where people can connect with you, I need to put my Mastodon on there actually, because or what I probably should do is just have I've created Blue Sky is now my favorite Twitter alternative, but I have created just an overall website, wesfryer.com/after, and that's the website where I kind of have all of my social media links. So welcome, Randall. We're glad that you're joining us. What we're going to do is just a little bit out of cycle for our normal cycle. I'm going to pause and go ahead and give us a chance to, well, I'm going to invite everybody to put some content on a slide. Um, that is fine. We can give voice to that, but that is kind of the plan that I think we're going to go with. We got a small group, and as I said, we changed our date. This was the second Monday, not the first Monday, so that may have had something to do with our attendance today. But I'm excited that you all are here, and I look forward to being able to share some different podcasts. I think maybe I'm going to do one other thing before I do this, and I didn't put this into the slideshow. Um, but so I love podcasts. I love sharing podcasts. I have been using a Google site for a while to share information about presentations that I have shared, and at different times of my life, I've been kind of a full-time professional development presenter and speaker. And I'm not doing that anymore. But one of the pages on this is a podcast page. And so I updated this, I guess, about a year and a half ago in March of 2024. But these were my top 9 podcasts at that time. Not all, related to educational technology. But as an example, maybe I'll do this as a quick example. Here's one that I love. It's called Voices from DARPA. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and they are doing really, really kind of amazing things. And these are short little podcasts that a lot of times are with program managers and with others working at DARPA talking about, the kinds of things that they're funding, the kind of projects they're doing, just really amazing and cutting edge stuff. And these are pretty short. These are about 15 minutes long. So here's an example, and feel free that I made about, I think, 20 duplicates of our slides. So you can go to any of these. We don't have that many folks in here, but I'm going to go to slide 11. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the art. So I copied the art over there onto the slideshow. I have the sharing settings right now set for anyone with the link. So you should be able to, I think you may have to have a Google account actually to be able to type in here, to go ahead and edit a slide. So here is the link for DARPA. This is Voices from DARPA. And you can either type your own description, or if you want to, copy and paste the description that they have. As a technique, one of the things I'll sometimes use in a Google slide like this is to paste without formatting. And that way I can just go ahead and format this the way I would like and not necessarily bring over the formatting of the original web page. This is a favorite for me because DARPA is a unique organization, and also these are about 15 minutes long, and that is kind of nice to know, about how much do I need to set aside in terms of time in order to listen to it. So and then if we've shared more than one thing, feel free to copy and paste there, and you do not need to add a photograph of yourself or a selfie. We are living in a time of surveillance, and I want to be very cognizant of that, giving all of us options about what we share. We are going to record the sharing portion of this. We're recording this, but I'll pause it as we do a little breakout. So anyway, that's the idea. Give everyone a little bit of time to make a slide or two. The other thing I'll say, it takes a little, the way that I'm able to share this list is I mentioned that my favorite podcast catcher or the listener is called Pocket Casts. And so Pocket Casts, I think it's actually an Australian-based developer. I've been using this for a number of years, and I used the free version for a long time. I love how easy it is to be able to share subscriptions within Pocket Cast. But it allows me to export my entire subscription list. And so the link here is created by Pocket Casts. And this is kind of nice because I don't have to manually do anything. And so there's a lot of podcasts that I subscribe to, but that's a quick way to create a comprehensive list. And it does allow, if there's some podcasts, for whatever reason that you don't want to share out, you can remove some if you want to customize that list and not, share everything together. The other thing that I'll mention is this summer, I started using a social networking tool called Pinboard. And Pinboard, like you might have used Delicious if you were an early Web 2.0 user, or Diigo is still alive. Delicious has gone away. Allows you to save bookmarks and tag them. The tag that I use for my podcast recommendations is podcast rec. And so that is the link to, I guess, since probably June, all the different podcasts, the specific episodes that I recommend, that I have been listening to. And I ended up doing a little vibe coding project that basically auto posts those over to my Mastodon account. So on social media, I've joined this North Carolina-based Triangle Toot Party, and so when I share a podcast, I sometimes manually post them, but it will actually auto post those over to um, over there on my um, Mastodon account, and I couldn't figure out how to do that. I think I wrote a post about that. Yeah, was that it? Anyway, yeah, this was the project, and there's a tool called Mastofeed that will auto post over to Mastodon. So anyway, that's very geeky, and I probably need to stop talking because I'm going to give us some time to build a slide. So let me go ahead and pause the recording, and then we'll spend some time building some slides. Let me hit pause. Okay, well, we have taken a little bit of time to build a few slides with a few links and a few pictures, and we're just going to kind of go through these a little bit. And if you're watching this recording on YouTube, we'll include the link to this slideshow so that you can check these out and actually click these hyperlinks. The first example we did was hard fork, so we already talked about that. I shared voices from DARPA. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, one of my good buddies who was a year ahead of me at the Air Force Academy's last duty assignment was actually as a program manager for DARPA. I didn't know a lot about DARPA at that time, which was like 20 years ago, probably, or maybe 15 years. What they said was DARPA was like 10 to 20 years ahead of consumer technology. I don't know if that's completely true today, but they are doing all kinds of stuff that is very future looking. I like this podcast because it's generally about 15 minutes long, so it's on the shorter side of podcasts I listen to, and it's just very diverse. And a lot of times they have someone who is a doing either a program manager with particular kinds of projects that they manage for DARPA, or there are folks who've come up with innovative solutions. I think of the moonshots that Google has attempted, and other companies that are just really looking far out in the future to try to, figure stuff out. DARPA has been working, for instance, with autonomous vehicles for a real long time. And so anyway, that's one that I added. We learned about Jules Turpak's TikTok. Amy, do you want to say anything for the recording about this, or you want me to talk about it? Whichever one's fine. She's a former, feel free to interrupt me if you want, if you want to share. Um, Amy said she's a former Washington Post writer, but just a really good youth voice, talking about our digital world. And of course, this brings up this idea that, with podcasting and channels and trusted voices, or just folks that we subscribe to and we listen to, multiple platforms. We can talk about YouTube creators and TikTok creators, but this is certainly someone that I'm interested in checking out. Let me see if I put mine in here. I think I did share it. So this,
Yeah, thanks, Wes. I keep having technical difficulties, but I'll chime in. She was primarily her voice was about digital and youth engagement with media in the Washington Post. I don't think she's writing for them anymore, but
right.
she is definitely still doing her TikToks and things. But yeah, she's been on CNN, she's been on other networks and things, and she's a 20 something
Yeah.
that just seems to be very savvy at media literacy, embedding
Yeah.
critical thinking in everything she does. Yeah.
That is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and click on her link here to her website. Again, this is one of the things. Oh, look, and it looks like it's this isn't a what is there's some of these link sharing. So this is I don't know. I wonder how I can annotate this. I wonder how she built this.
That's a link tree.
A link,
Yeah,
it is a link tree. Oh, thank you.
yeah, I
That's
think it's a
right.
link tree.
Yes, I have a link tree off of my Instagram, but there's her TikTok short forms, there's her long form videos on YouTube, her Spotify, Substack. Isn't that amazing? So she's quite a content creator. And
Yeah.
I really think that we need to be paying more attention to content creators. I think that we need to be trying to empower content creators to do different things, but for instance, to be advocates for media literacy, right? And to, finding other creators who are sharing the same sorts of pedagogical and instructional values and concepts and techniques and those kind of things. So that's fantastic. And that's just, that's why it's so helpful to have a website, because once you find that person's profile, then here's a bunch of other places, where she's creating and sharing. And that's just awesome. Thank you so much for sharing her. On the topic of TikTok, I shared my Cook with Wes channel. This is where I post mainly barbecue stuff, but other things that I cook. This is how I have learned a lot about TikTok. I don't personally spend a lot of time there. My buddy Jason Neiffer, that I do a weekly podcast with, called the EdTech Situation Room. I should probably put that in here. He has at times really, really gotten into TikTok and been amazed by their algorithm. And that is certainly an important thing that I think when we have personal experience with a platform, I mean, it just depends on all sorts of factors, how engaged with social media we are and how many different platforms we're using. But the algorithm on TikTok can really be crazy, and crazy meaning it can be exceptionally good, but there's so much to that. We probably should have, a media club that's just about TikTok. That we have a meeting that we just talk about. Lauren, are you willing to share a little bit about the editors, or would you like me to kind of read that and share that? I'm happy to do that either way.
Sorry, I got a new work computer and it didn't have Zoom on it, so I'm on my phone. So having trouble finding the buttons.
You did a great job on your
Um,
slide for being on your phone. Good
well,
job.
that I actually was able to do on my computer because I have the
Okay.
notes saved from a previous
Okay.
session that
Great.
I was with you in. So I was able to pop back
Awesome.
in there because it's so organized and linked up. So
Awesome.
thank you. So the slide I did was for the editors podcast. They're the editors of the National Review magazine, which is a very conservative magazine. I was actively seeking out alternative perspectives just to help me get a better understanding of how people think about um, what's going on in our country in different ways. So I really like these guys because they really talk in depth about the topics. I like it because they don't all agree with each other. Sometimes they have different takes, but they've got a lot of integrity as far as their values and um, their perspective. So then they'll take it. It's analysis. So you're listening to what other people think about it, but I feel like their starting points are from facts, and then using their analysis, I can better understand um, like maybe how conservative uh, people would interpret different situations since I'm more on the more liberal end of things myself.
Yeah.
That's why I like
Wow.
that podcast.
That is fantastic. And I'm certainly continuing to do a lot of work about political polarization and wrestling with ways that we can not only move through, but hopefully transcend this era of,
Mhm.
weaponized and hijacked media feeds. And depending upon the spheres we live in, the, friends and relatives and neighbors we have, it is incredible how different the media experience can be for different people. So I think that is
Yeah, and they're not super they're not emotional. They're not like the infotainment
they're,
kind
they're not
of
they're not trolling culture war meat,
analysis.
not trolling
No,
culture
and
war
it's
memes.
so like I do kind of feel like from an education perspective that we need to be spending a lot more time with students because so much is analysis or starting from facts that really helping students differentiate when they're looking at whatever kind of medium
Hmm.
um, where the facts are and then where the analysis is or the opinion or however you wherever that creator goes with it, but really being able to tease that out because I think that's where a lot of things are kind of falling apart. Because generally, if it's just the facts, it's going to sound like a textbook and it's going to be boring and nobody's going to interact with it. So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
always going to be some kind of opinion or entertainment or angle or perspective that the content we're interacting with has. And you need to be able to, whether it's your own bias or you need to be able to recognize that as well, and understand which points are just the facts and which points then are the interpretation.
Absolutely. And I think that's a, great thing to think about as well as media literacy educators, is to really challenge ourselves to step outside of our own bubble, to recognize that we all live in some kind of media bubble, and be, challenged to step outside of that. And that sounds great. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's see. Oh, this was one. I think this was also from Lauren. This was a little bit more on the political side, but Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, and it is a YouTube. Well, it's on YouTube, but it's also on Apple Podcasts. So I'm actually helping a couple different folks get some podcasts started, and it's so interesting in terms of like, where do you host this? Do you pay for this or just free? And with YouTube being so big of a platform, I really think that makes sense as a video podcast. But I enjoy listening to my audio podcasts, and so I'm appreciative when we can get that on Pocket Casts and other places too. As a side note, and I haven't, I have a little experience with this. You can take a channel on YouTube and then designate a playlist as the podcast for that channel. So as an example, this podcast that I do with my friend Jason, the EdTech Situation Room, that is how this podcast was created. Is we created a playlist, and then that playlist becomes a podcast that then gets, I think, distributed, and people can get on various channels. We use a platform called StreamYard, and it's going to try to log me into my StreamYard account there. But StreamYard is a paid platform that we pay for, but it really does facilitate the process of sharing it to multiple platforms. You have to have 100 subscribers in order to stream to Facebook Live now, and we don't. So we just stream on YouTube. But anyway, YouTube is such a huge player in the podcasting world as well. Let's see. Shoot, sorry, clicking on the wrong things. Randall, I could talk about Hidden Brain, but why don't you tell about Hidden Brain? Why is Hidden Brain a wonderful podcast? I love this one and subscribe to this one too.
Yeah, everybody likes this one. It's I guess it's probably, so I have about, probably like you, like about 50 different feeds subscribed to.
Right.
And all different topics, but I find that there's too many, right? And so I have to pick and choose which episodes to listen to. And I find I always pick the Hidden Brain episodes. So if you click on that, you can see all the different interesting topics that he covers. And I like that it's very professionally done, but it's, the host, Sean Carbondale, he asks really good questions. He's very, down to earth. How Brains There, that was a good one. He's very down to earth. Yes, very insightful questions. He lets the people talk, the experts. He interviews usually one person each time and talks about that topic, but he lets them really, he gets the most out of them. So he's a great host in that sense. And so I think people see that, and, that's why people keep coming back to this.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I would consider this, I would put this up as an exemplar for a podcast for a lot of different reasons. It's also interesting to me as a web designer and a web developer and a teacher of web design, how how podcasts are set up in terms of the thumbnail or the featured image, the playable audio here in the browser, some, short description, sometimes some additional media, but then, subscription links, newsletter. I think so much, relies upon email newsletters. And so for those of us that are creators and people sharing, anyway, it is great. And I think as an educator, brain science and getting more insight into what new things that brain research has shown, it's a highly appealing podcast to educators. When it comes to professional development, I've been around for a little while now, and it seems like, brain science and brain research would always be sort of a recurring theme sometimes with school professional development. And so it's a fantastic one. Thank you for sharing that one. Because Lauren had mentioned the Um, previous one with Maddow, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm skipping around. With the Pivot, with Swisher and Galloway. That reminded me of Rachel Maddow. I had read, I think this was the summer, last summer, well, summer before last, not this one we just finished, but I read Prequel by Rachel Maddow. And Rachel Maddow is on MSNBC. She has been. Maybe some of that has changed, but it tells a story of how here in the United States we had a number of people struggling to fight against fascism, against Nazi Germany, and the political corruption and the ways in which Germany and the Nazis were very deeply embedded within our politics. And Ultra is an accompanying podcast that went with that book, and that was just fantastic. Randall, what is no? I don't even know how to say that word.
No
Proscenium?
proscenium.
Proscenium. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
So no proscenium. It is so no proscenium is basically probably the best source for immersive theater and immersive entertainment. So if you're not familiar with immersive theater, it's theater where there is no proscenium. So so the audience, there's no wall in front of the audience, right? You're not just sitting there watching the play. You are part of the play. So the audience is immersed and engaged in the play, and oftentimes so we're getting more and more of these experiences in theme parks like Star Wars Galaxy Edge or Universal Studios, Harry Potter World, or Nintendo Land. So you feel like you're in that environment, right? So you're in the world, and we're seeing a little bit more of this in education, and that's why I put it here, because we don't want to just sit back and passively consume entertainment, just as we shouldn't sit back passively and try to consume learning, right? Learning materials. We need to be engaged, actively engaged, and these things actively engage the participants. So this podcast goes over, you can see how many episodes they have. I think they just did their 500, right?
Hundreds, 450, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been around a while, and it's interesting just to listen to the new things that come out. I just went to, I don't know if anybody has seen Meow Wolf. They have 5 different locations across mainly the Midwest and West. And what it is an immersive art experience. And I went to Las Vegas this weekend and went through one of theirs. It's called Omega Mart. And what it is it's created by 400 artists, and you're walking through, and it's stitched together, and they put a storyline through it. And so you're walking through the story, basically trying to find, you're trying to uncover the next piece of the story. And you're walking through this giant complex of art, of amazing art, doing that. And we spent like 3 hours doing that. Every room is just so incredible. But what I think about when I go through these as an educator is that how can this engage students? How can we do something like this to engage students more in the learning? How can we embed and the content in here? And how can we have them create things like this to show their learning? So that's why I shared this.
That is so great, and I appreciate you stepping out of maybe a traditional media literacy frame, because I've never heard of that. We've gone to a few possibly theater programs where that wall is broken, and we're but not what you're talking about. So I'm gonna add that one to my subscriptions. We are at the top of the hour, but I want to share these additional ones, and then I've got to run to study hall. Lauren shared Science Versus, a Spotify podcast, a myth-busting approach to controversial topics and current events. It's a favorite because it's hilarious and it's science. I love science. I love curiosity and wonder. And so I'm excited to check this out. I shared Angry Planet. This is a political international politics podcast I've subscribed to for years. It used to be called War College. Great interviews with authors, with all kinds of folks. Definitely one of my favorites. It's one of the only ones that I have paid for, which takes ads and things. I really don't pay for a lot of podcasts. Randall shared The Psychology of Video Games, as its analysis of psychological effects of video games related to learning. If you don't know Randall and his work with game-based learning and video games and education, Wonderful, wonderful, and a great recommendation. So I think that actually is the end of our shares. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for contributing. I would like to continue to figure out ways that as a community we can share the channels that we subscribe to, the podcasts we listen to, because this is the media landscape that we live in today. Yes, there's books, and please, tell me about the books that you read. That can be transformational as well. But I've definitely experienced multiple times the transforming power of, sharing a channel and then subscribing to that creator and then being able to learn from that creator over time. It really can be wonderful. So I kind of wish we could talk longer, but thank you all so much. Please join us next month. We'll have the next month. If you got suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover, my email address is there on the Media Education Labs Media Ed Club site. Reach out to me, email me. Have a fantastic rest of your day and a great fall 2025 semester. We'll hope to see you in another Media Education Lab event soon, and see you again in October. The first Monday. We'll keep our schedule the same for October. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks all. That